Hey all, you are heading into your first project. I have the instructions typed out on Canvas for you to read, but if you are a visual person and my instructions look a little bit overwhelming, I'm going to show you analog style. So hopefully at this point you have yourself a lovely sketchbook. And we talked about sketchbooks earlier. Your sketchbook is totally one that can be a composition book that has lines on it. It can also be a sketchbook with just white paper. My sketchbook for this year happens to be this lovely striped monstrosity underneath here. And what I'm probably going to end up doing with this, you'll see it change throughout the year. We are going to collage the covers of them. If you want to get a jump on this, this is an Art 2 project right here. But if you want to do something like this and crazy and awesome on your own sketchbook, I would totally encourage you to do that. So anyways, our very first project or our very first thing that we are working on this year is we are going to just do a brief review of our Elements of Art and Principles of Design. So within your sketchbook, you will need your computer or device. You are going to need your sketchbook. You are going to need a pencil or a pen, something to color with, these types of things. What we're going to do is we are not only going to create little sketches, but we're also going to create a place for definitions. These definitions you are going to find on a link. The link is titled, I believe it's the Elements of Art Curator Pack, something along those lines. And so you're going to get a virtual version of these. If you want to print them out, you're welcome to. If you don't want to print them out, please don't do that. It's a waste of paper unless you absolutely love these images on here. Each of these, we have our line, we have our texture, shape, form, color, value. So as you're scrolling through, you'll see these. Space. Now composition gets tricky. Composition is not an element of art. Composition talks about taking these elements of art and arranging them into your final artwork. And so composition actually ties in with our principles of design. So you'll notice up at the top here, it says principles of design. We have contrast, emphasis, movement, rhythm, proportion, balance, unity, variety. Now, the crazy thing about art, it is not math. In math, you have a right answer and a wrong answer. In art, it's all a little bit fluid. It's all a little bit changing. So in some places, you'll see elements of art that include these and maybe others. In other places, you might see elements of art that are not inclusive of some of these words. Principles of design change around. I was taught pattern, and pattern is not included in this packet of stuff. I believe that pattern's not really actually included because it's actually part of movement and it's part of rhythm. It kind of overlaps a lot of them. So know that these words are a big overview. They are not the be all end all, but these are the words that are pretty important, and they're the ones that I do want you to know. So inside of your sketchbook, I told you to put a line in the middle of the page. You can put the line this way if you want to. If you feel better doing it this way, you can do it this way too. It's totally up to you. I don't mind. And I'm going to write the word line. And actually up here, I'm going to go ahead and write the elements of art. And maybe for the sake of argument, I'm going to go ahead and write the date. The reason that I'm doing this is that I remember in my brain vaguely where I kind of put things, and this kind of helps. It sounds kind of crazy, but this is my sketchbook from the beginning of the year. I haven't done a huge amount of sketching in it, but you can see where when I take notes, I go ahead and just write down the date and time that I do it. It just kind of helps keep me organized, which is a struggle most days. So on here, I'm going to write the word line. I'm also going to find the definition. So it says here, a line can be described as a path of a point moving through space. And in artwork, there are many types of lines. We can look for direction of the line, the feeling of the line, the quality of the line, how the lines move our eye through the work. Lines can be described as active, flowing, passive, light, thick, thin, broken, continuous, implied, actual, contour, outlines, perpendicular, parallel, bold, delicate, straight, curved, long, short, geometric, organic, precise, irregular, vertical, horizontal, zigzag, and direct. So, in thinking about those words, I know when I taught elementary, we talked about lines being straight or curvy or zigzaggy. This gives us a lot more to think about because you guys are high school. So it is time to start applying a lot of those adjectives to more of what we do and what we create. Looking down here at the image, think about, it says think and talk about it. Describe the lines in this artwork. How do the lines in this artwork create connections? How do these lines move our eye around the artwork? Marc Chagall is absolutely amazing with lines, and his lines sometimes are an actual hard physical line like you see here. Sometimes it's implied, so as it wraps around the edge of the animal's face, we see where the line should be, but it's not that hard edge that happens up here. We see this line that's coming up through here and how it just kind of connects into his eyebrow, but then another line here zigzags off of that. And so these lines just kind of pull your eye through the artwork, and he purposely guides you to where he wants you to see. So as you look at each of these cards, I do want you to take this into consideration. And if you want to write this out verbatim, go right on ahead and do that. If you want to go through and you want to paraphrase this, you can paraphrase this too. So I'm going to take line and I'm going to write it out as a point, because a line is described as the path of a point. So it's a point that follows a path. So there I have enough of a definition that I can assure myself that I know what I'm talking about. If I wanted to write it verbatim, I totally could have, but I don't want to spend all day doing that because I would like to spend a little bit more time actually drawing. So in your instructions, I went ahead and said to give yourself a box or something that is about the size of a half of a gift card, half of a credit card. We're doing thumbnail sketches. So I'm not pulling out a credit card and I'm not actually tracing around it. I'm just creating a box on here that comes close to the size that I think it should be. Could I be crazy and just say, you know what, Miss Harwood, this is art. I don't have to fall into your little boxes there. Sure, go ahead. But what I want you to do is I do want you to create two illustrations, two drawings, to something that represents some of these descriptions that we saw in here. So for line, maybe I'm looking at some of those adjectives. And those adjectives said, kind of an implied line. And a broken line. So here I'm creating maybe a broken up line, and maybe that line could curve around here. Maybe that line becomes a pen line. And maybe it just actually becomes something. Maybe I do want something less organic and more geometric. The deal with a line, though, is that there's an ending, there's a beginning, and it doesn't necessarily create a shape. A shape is a line that is enclosed. And so that will be the next thing we start to work with. So I'm going to play around with this, create my little thumbnail. I'm going to create a second thumbnail over here. Then I'm going to go down here below and I'm going to write the word texture because texture is the next line or the next word. Texture. I'm going to read my definition. I'm going to write my own version of that definition, or I'm going to write it verbatim. And I'm going to do my 2 thumbnail drawings. So maybe one here and maybe one here. I'm going to flip my page like so. If my drawings show through, so like right here, I'm looking at this and my lines are showing through my paper, I'm not going to use the back of it. However, if your sketchbook is small and maybe you don't have a huge amount of pages, maybe you use just pencils and maybe you used coloring pencils and didn't have to worry about pens showing through. If that's the case, go ahead and write the next 2 words on the back of the page. I will leave that up to you. So over here, my next 2 words, I got shape. I'm going to go ahead and write elements of art. And I'm going to write form. Notice I left a big space in between because I'm going to draw my line here. I'm going to make my area for my 2 thumbnail sketches. I'm going to write my definition in my definition. I'm going to do that for form, and I'm going to continue through writing a box for each of my elements of art and each of my principles of design with examples of that in my sketchbook. Now, if you're a little bit confused by this, you're looking at the pictures and you're like, how do I do a drawing that represents texture? You are welcome to get onto Google and type in elements of art and hit Google Images, and there are bazillions of ideas that will come back to you, from little line drawings to actual formal drawings like this. Your drawings do not have to be formal, and in fact, on my next book, so this right here is actually where we're going to go with this. I have this illustration and I'm using lines and I'm using shapes. And it's just an abstract image that just demonstrates both of them. I might go back and I might color them. But what we're going to do is we're going to work in our sketchbooks first, defining and just playing around with that particular idea. We're going to take that idea and we are going to make an actual book with many pages. That's going to be the second part of this project. And your final project is going to be a book in its entirety, illustrated and ready to go. So go ahead, complete this. I think I gave you 4 or 5 class days to complete this portion, so you don't have to do this all in one day. If we were sitting in class, we would probably have 5 class periods, so 5 45-minute sections for you to work on each of these. We'll take a day to fold our book, and then we will take probably 3 or 4 days to actually illustrate our book, finish it up, complete it, and make it look really nice. So these are sketches. Do a good job with them, but you don't have to spend a huge amount of time with them. Play around with some of the materials that maybe you got. Maybe you got some crayons, maybe you have markers, maybe you have coloring pencils. If you have pens or pencils, whatever you have, go ahead and just pull it out and play around with it. It's possible for even some of these that you actually collage items. So when I'm doing shapes, maybe I want to take pieces of newspaper or magazines and I want to cut them out and collage them on here and create something out of shapes. It's entirely up to you. But this is your first introduction, and I hope you have a little bit of fun with this. You will be submitting these as pictures. So what you'll do is I showed you how to submit on Canvas. what you'll do is either use your Chromebook or your cell phone, take a photo of this page, take a photo of the second page. So take a photo of each of the pages. You're going to insert them into either Google Docs or Google Slides, and you're going to submit either just one document that shows all your elements of art and principles of design, or you're going to submit one slideshow that shows all of that. So stretch out the images so that we can see them, and that's how you're going to submit them to me. Uh, these definitions and some of these images will come back to play later on in the year, especially as we start to do written assessments. So I hope you have fun, and email me if you have any questions at all. Thanks.